All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal Free Agent Frenzy 2024. I can't
Woo!
believe how quickly this offseason has gone by. The combine's already over. The dog and pony show where a bunch of college kids run, jump, lift, and they don't swim, but they probably should. It's a wild time, the NFL Combine, but we are right on the cusp of what I think, Rich Hill, is going to be one of the more interesting free agency periods in NFL history. But before we get into all of that, first and foremost, how's your off-season treating you so far?
It's good. It's good. I mean, for those of you who have listened to this podcast for the past decade or so, y'all know my favorite part of the season is the off season in a way that I just truly love the team building aspect. There's so much hope and promise. And it's one of those time frames where you can let your imagination run wild. And so I'm just very excited that the Patriots are, sitting well with a ton of cap space. They should be, it'll be very revealing on how the front office chooses to spend it, because I think it'll really reveal how the team will approach the rest of the season. And I mean that because I feel like the last few seasons under Bill Belichick, not only were some of the free agents, they didn't pan out, but I think it really revealed a lot of outdated thinking. And so I'm very curious to see how this new front office, how this new administration approaches roster management, because will it be a breath of fresh air or will it be more of the same? That remains to be seen. But for me, this is the first time that we'll get to have like a brand new look at the team finally.
Yeah, it's funny, man. And I feel like we've been talking about the Patriots draft pick since like late September with how they've been performing. And we're all excited about the third overall pick, who they're going to take, Drake May, Marvin Harrison, who's going to be available, blah, blah, blah. But we're forgetting that free agency is a huge part of team building, and how they
Yep.
approach the draft will likely be dictated on how they approach free agency. So the next couple of days, couple of weeks, going to be really, really exciting. So let's jump into it, Rich Hill. You touched on it a bit for our first and goal. First down, how the hell do you see Gerard Mayo approaching free agency? This is Bill Belichick. We know the answer. They do nothing for the first couple of days, let the market set itself, sign some value guys for team friendly contracts that fit areas of need. They very rarely went out and got that marquee darling of the free agency class. Once in a while they did, but rarely. It was usually a very boring time for Patriots fans. What are your expectations this year? Are they going to go big, or are they going to kind of wait for a while, let the market set itself?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing was Mayo having to walk back the like, we're going to spend bags of money, and then two press conferences later, he was like, no, I didn't, no, not like that, not like that. And so, who knows? I mean, they have like over 100 million in cap space. They have to do better than what they did a few years back, right? When they spent all of that money. Like, yes, Judon was great, but pretty much everyone else was either mediocre or terrible. So I feel like they have to do better this time around. It sounds like, from what Elliot Wolf has talked about in the front office, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots approach this by trying to take care of their own. He expressed that being the Packers way. I think that they'll want to make sure that, the homegrown talent, Kyle Duggar, Michael Onwenu, can they find a way to keep him in the fold? They transition tag Kyle Duggar. I wouldn't be surprised if they let Onwenu test the free agent market to see what the value is on the open market, to see if they can match it, if it makes sense. And I wouldn't be surprised if we also saw kind of a glut of extensions across their players that they really want to retain. Thinking of the Jonathan Jones and Jabril Peppers, but also like the Dietrich Wise, like the team captains, David Andrews, the players that you want to have around from a culture perspective. So I think that they'll try to do a lot of housekeeping on their own front. But then I think what I would like to see them do is bring in some, mid-level free agents that can compete, because I don't think that there's any real top tier free agents that are worth investing in.
All right, so basically, you see the Patriots using their 100 million cap space first on their in-house guys, and then secondly, maybe taking the Belichick approach, not signing any big contracts, but seeing where their areas of need are and filling holes based on that need, maybe the best available player for the best available contract. Gone are the days where guys are going to take less money to come to New England. I can't imagine anybody champing at the bit to play in New England in December for a bottom tier team. So it's going to have to be a lucrative and incentivized contract for you to come play in New England. They have to factor that part in. You see them going in-house first and then as needed later. That's kind of your approach?
Yeah, I mean, like, part of it is you always want to, the first wave of free agency, there aren't a lot of players that get signed during that you're like, oh, that was a good value. And it's not a situation where the Patriots are in a position where they have to think about value, because they have so much cap space and they also have so many needs. But I think what the Patriots will want to do is, invest through the draft. They're going to try and get some blue chip players. They have so many holes, and there aren't enough players on the free agent market that I think could really push them over the edge. When you look at like who might be getting the big money, like Kirk Cousins, gonna get a ton of money in free agency. Baker Mayfield, second best quarterback out there, probably gonna get big money. Is it worth it? I don't think so. I mean, we've seen Baker Mayfield. He's out there with the Bucks, had his, a strong season, but was that the best version of Baker Mayfield that you're going to get? Is he going to get like 30 to 40 million per year in the open market? Probably. Patriots shouldn't be in on that. And so I think where, instead of just building for who's the best player that you can get right now with all the 100 million, you got to think about longer pit term, bigger picture. What's the most sustainable way to rebuild this team?
Yeah, I really hope they don't fall into a very, very common NFL GM trap, which is, oh, this guy started and won a game as a quarterback. Let's give him a big contract. We've seen it so many times in the past. The quarterback plays well for a couple of games. Now, to Baker's defense, he made the playoffs. He was way better than, say, a Mike Glennon, one of those kind of roles. But still, you don't want to see guys getting lopped on these big contracts for not that great a performance. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I think rather than talk about the areas of need the Patriots have, because you said there's really not a position where if they sign somebody, to be like, yeah, that was a waste. They're totally set at this position. I think pretty much every level has a hole in some capacity on this roster. Maybe starting outside corner is okay, but everywhere else, if they bring somebody in, I am totally cool with it. So in your opinion, Rich, in terms of free agency, taking the draft out of it for a second, what is their number one free agent target position-wise you'd go for if you were the GM here?
All of them. Like, I mean, the big caveat is that like they have a lot of needs. There just might not be players that fit it. Like, obviously they need a quarterback. Are they going to get one? Is it one of those positions where you need to come back with one out of free agency? I don't think so. I already mentioned that Baker Mayfield thing, but like after that, like Russell Wilson, Gardner Minshew, those are like the next two best players. And if that's the case, I'd rather just run it back with Mac Jones and a rookie. Like, bring in Jacoby Brissett. We talked about this last time, but like there's no need to throw money at a position that if it's not going to actually make your position better or make your roster better. I mean, literally, they have no tight ends. They need to bring in tight ends. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed a couple tight ends, but also, are there any tight ends available in free agency that are really worth it? Hunter Henry is probably the best tight end in free agency right now at this point, So like, is that going to be where they invest all their money? I don't think so. So they're probably going to sit out and wait. I think that what the Patriots could do best is look at their positions and say, our number 2, number 3, number 4 players at the position, are any of them playable? You look at that interior line of the Patriots, it's ghastly. Like, David Andrews, still, a great leader, definitely on the back end of his career. Sidy Sow came on strong at there, but like, would the Patriots be better off if they found like a solid Ted Karras level left guard to replace Cole Strange, who just like has not lived up to the expectation, consistently dealing with injuries? Would the roster be better off if you got like 2 Ted Karrases on there versus what they had last year, where, just had constant rotations on the interior line? That's where I would invest the money in, is just building out that middle class of the roster.
I'll tell you one really big advantage the Patriots have in 2024, beyond the massive amount of cap space, is they're in a very good position in that nobody on that coaching staff or in that front office is in that I got to do something or I'm fired next year kind of situation. Yep. You've seen so many contracts where guys are like, I have to do something. It's not really skin up my ass if I'm gone next year anyway. So I'll just give this guy a big contract, make this big splashy move, get the headlines. Maybe it'll work out. If it doesn't, I'm gone anyway. They don't really have to take that approach, which I think is really, really beneficial. Combined with that 100 million plus cap space, it really puts them in a good spot to do some really concerted and focused roster building. To that end, Rich, before we get into the actual Patriot-specific stuff on second down, last thing on first down, are there any free agent moves elsewhere in the league that surprised you? We know the Bills are cleaning house right now. They're well over the cap. Any surprise cuts? Russell Wilson might be one you're talking about. That was one of, maybe, I don't know where that ranks, kind of the all-time worst trades in NFL history, but anything really kind of shock you around the league?
Well, I would say like the two worst trades in NFL history have to be Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, and they happened in the same week. So really bad. But I think what is really notable, what the Patriots will keep their eyes out for when thinking around compensatory picks, when thinking around how they want to build this roster, similar to how, this is going to be a Packers style rebuild. In the past, Packers would have like 50 out of 53 players on the roster, or players that they drafted or were undrafted free agents that they developed at home. They're going to be very intentional about where they bring in players. But you look at a lot of the veterans that are now all of a sudden available in free agency. The Bills, they cut Mitch Morse, who's a quality center. They cut Jordan Poyer. You look at the Seahawks. Jamal Adams has not lived up to the expectations with the Seahawks, but how many safeties have come and played in the Belichick style defense that were underwhelming somewhere else and then are all of a sudden incredible? Adrian Phillips had a great stretch here. You think of Jabril Peppers, what he's been doing. There is definitely a space for Jamal Adams if he wants to come and have a, prove it resurgent 1-year deal, especially if you think, what's the future for Kyle Duggar. You get some like veteran interior linemen, Mark Lewinsky, Laken Tomlinson, like players that aren't going to push you into championship territory, but they raise your floor. They're going to be better than what the Patriots have had on that offensive line. These are the players that I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots, decided to bring into the fold, but also one that, really speaks to the import of capitalizing on your championship window. I think the Bills window might be over. Like not in like a close and seal it shut kind of a thing, but the era that they had here, they're going to have to retool their entire team if they're going to contend. The roster that they had that brought them to be one of the top 3 teams in the AFC that bore no fruit from a championship perspective, that one's done. They don't have Josh Allen on a rookie contract. Their entire secondary, I think they're cutting Tre'Davious White. Jordan Poyer's gone. Micah Hyde's gone. Like, they don't have their secondary anymore. That was their greatest strength on their defense. Stephon Diggs getting another year older. They've already been trying to figure out how they can find a second wide receiver, and Gabe Davis is now available in free agency. This is a Bills team. They're cutting their offensive linemen. I think they're still like $40 million in the hole from cap space perspective. They were in a bad spot. And so, like, for me, that's what I'm watching. Like, this Bills team, what are they going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now? Going to be drastically different.
It is. And therein lies the savage beauty of the NFL, and all the more reason to appreciate what we got these last 20 years, the consistency the Patriots had.
What's up, guys? It's Alec from Patriots First and Gold on CLNS, and I'm talking to you today about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and then just watch the winnings roll in. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this past NFL season has been the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. It's so simple and easy to play. I just make my Prize Picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. As a Patriots fan, it's been pretty easy this past season to say they'd scored less than 2 touchdowns a game because the offense was putrid. But there's other ways to do it as well. This NBA season, you want Steph Curry to put up more than 30? Do you want Kevin Durant to put up more than 20? You can. Prize Picks is really fun and really easy to use. So download the app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It's Prize Picks.
But let's do the second down, Rachel. Speaking of Patriots free agents. There are a number of names that I think are important. Kyle Duggar obviously is the big one in terms of he's already been transitioned. The rumor is they've already got a multi-year deal on the table. Rumored to be about $13 million a year. We'll monitor that as things progress. But as you mentioned, every single tight end on the roster, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, and my guy Pharaoh Brown, all free agents. We've got Kendrick Bourne is a big free agent. Josh Uche is a free agent. Anthony Jennings, Miles Bryant, Jalen Mills. So there's a lot of names that are homegrown talent or been around for long enough to deserve that second contract, that third contract, whatever the case may be. Is there any name in particular that you think, besides Duggar, since he seems to be in progress of getting signed, is there like an absolute Patriots must re-sign this guy at all cost player, or are they all kind of expendable to you?
Yeah, I would say there's two in my mind. One, obviously, Michael Onwenu. This is a very weak tackle class. You're gonna have to pay. It's gonna be okay though. He is an above-average starter. Deal with the devil you know than the one you don't. There's not going to be a free agent tackle better than him than what you're going to find. You know that he can play. You know that he can play multiple roles if you need to. You will continue to build depth, but do what you have to keep Onwenu in there. But I don't think anyone's really surprised by that one. My other player that I feel like they absolutely must do everything they can to retain him, Anthony Jennings. I don't think it's going to cost them a lot to do that. But I think when you look at the depth that the Patriots have on the edge, like Judon's going to be another year older. Dietrich Wise has a very specific role. He plays a different role than Anthony Jennings did, but there's not a lot of depth out there. Like Keon White plays kind of a different role than what Jennings did. And I think what Jennings showed he could do last year, I think he led the league, tied for the league lead in tackles for loss out there. He's that Rob Ninkovich style, can set the edge, can be reliable, can do what you need him to do. Maybe he won't put up a 12 sack season kind of a thing, but that's the kind of reliability that you need up front that really sets the tone for the rest of the defense, that allows your secondary to take a little bit more risk, that can force opposing offenses into second and third and long situations. And he doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. He is as solid as it gets. He's someone that I imagine won't cost them a lot to retain, but would be worth every penny.
Rich, I've known you for a long time. I thought I knew you pretty well. I would have bet the farm that Kendrick Bourne was a name to come out of your mouth. You are such a Kendrick Bourne guy. You've always been a Kendrick Bourne guy.
Totally.
But you don't put him as like a must resign kind of guy.
I would love to have him back. Always hard to come after that injury. And, based off of how this Patriots offense was last year, the year before, if they're like the only player that we want to retain in 2024 is Demario Douglas, or maybe, Ramondre Stevenson as well. But from a receiver perspective, Demario Douglas was the only player that they wanted to keep. I would say, cool. I understand. Like I love Bourne. You love something, you let him free. I feel like he's shown what he can do, and the Patriots just were not able to do anything with it over the past few years. And now that he's dealing with the injury, another year older, again, would love to have him back, but I wouldn't put him in that need to keep pile.
What about my guy, Pharaoh Brown? Like I said, there are no tight ends. Hunter Henry will command at least some market because he's probably, as you mentioned, the best tight end available on the market. I can't see Mike Gesicki coming back. That just experiment never quite worked out. Maybe there'll be some really – it's not really his fault. It just never really managed to find a flow in the offense. But I think Pharaoh Brown could be had for relatively cheap. He was a good blocker, a good receiving option. One of the more – I hate to say this, one of the more electric offensive weapons the Patriots had in 2023. But I think he's probably, of all the three tight ends, he's probably the one with the best chance of coming back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would say Gesicki has no chance of coming back. I think that they would want to have Henry back. I think they have a price point. They'd be like, yeah, that last deal we gave you was way too much. We'll give you like $4 million a year this time around and see what other people on the market offer. I just feel like he'll get an offer somewhere else. Maybe he'll be like, I don't know, I like it in New England, I'll stay. I can see that happening, but I don't think that the Patriots are going to overextend themselves to keep Henry. Although I think he did well. Like he was the most reliable offensive player for the past 3 years, kind of a thing. Jacoby Myers notwithstanding. I'm fine with that. Other player we haven't really talked a lot about on the other defensive players, Miles Bryant. I think he'll be back. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's going to be a Miles Bryant or Jaylen Mills. I don't think both of those guys will come back. I can see that if they decided to depend more on the Kyle Duggar and Miles Bryant, I think you can see Mills being the odd man out there. He's coming up it could be the best season of his career, Miles Bryant. So that might make him a little more pricey than the Patriots are willing to pay. I wouldn't break the bank for a cornerback of his caliber, but they will have the cap space to do it. I think the right place is a good combination, but I don't see them signing both Mills and Bryant.
I agree. And I mean, they cut Mills. I think Mills is has run his course in New England in the same way that Adrian Phillips did. I think Mills was great for what he did for the Patriots. I don't think that he's here for the longer haul. And I think that Bryant is just getting started. I think that he did have his best season last year. And I think that he just has like a lot more upside to go. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought it back. He's a starter for them. I think that I like the upside of Marcus Jones, but Miles Bryant was reliable out there. Obviously, he got exposed on some like high leverage plays, but that's just the nature of the role he was doing out there. And then, if you're able to return the Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Miles Bryant top three, and then you have any other players that step up, if Jones is able to step up as well, Sean Wade, I think, played well in limited time. Alex Austin, I liked in limited time. You have a pretty good cornerback room right there.
Last we'll talk about, Rich, on the Patriots side. I think it's pretty an interesting perspective. There's two names I'll bring up. We haven't really talked about too deeply. Josh Uche, coming off of 2022, had a great season. I think he only had about 3 sacks last year. Not a huge 2023 campaign. And the opposite side of that, Mack Wilson was kind of a pleasant surprise for the Patriots. I don't think either of these two guys will command a high price tag, but they might be looking to upgrade the position. Of those two guys, which has the best odds of coming back, do you think?
Mack Wilson. I think he has that special teams ability. He's that core player. They don't have a lot of that depth on the interior. So obviously like Jawan Bentley under contract, and then Tavai is under contract for a year. But like you got Chris Board and Raekwon McMillan. Like there's a very clear path to the field for Mack Wilson. Just one injury. He got a substantial amount of playing time last year anyways, and he did very well. I think that they like him. I think he liked Mayo. I think he would love to be back. He played about 300 snaps last year on defense. I could see that improving a little bit. And then ultimately at the end of it, I wouldn't be surprised if Uche commands like a lot more than what the Patriots really think he's worth. Like I could see him getting like $8 million a year or something like that. If I'm the Patriots, like, would you pay him more than Dietrich Wise? Would you pay him like in between Wise and in Judon? I wouldn't. I mean, I would say like, give me that 4th round compensatory pick and call it a career with him, because I don't think that they really found a way for him to play beyond just being that like 3rd down pass rusher. They never viewed him as an every down player. He peaked at like 35% of the snaps in 2022. He didn't even play 30% of the snaps last year. He's a rotational player in New England. He'll get more playing time. He'll get to go after the quarterback a little bit more. And I think the Patriots, similar to like Chase Winovich, they'll be like, let's start again later.
Yeah, one of those guys that we like to use the word flashed around a lot here. Some guys he flashed, phenomenally athletic at times, but has never quite found his footing in New England. And there are enough teams out there, I think, that could use a depth guy that they might get more money than he'll command. Luckily, though, Rich Hill, there are plenty of other free agents out there for the Patriots to bring on outside the roster. We're going to talk about in a minute. 3rd and goal coming up. All right, Rich Hill, we've kind of broken down the Patriots free agents, how we think it's going to come back, who's not. Now to the more fun part, or the less fun part, depending on how you look at it. Who do you see coming in elsewhere? There are a lot of players that are going to be available. There's not a, as you mentioned, it's not like a massively talent heavy or superstar heavy, I should say, free agency class. Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be this. Maybe Chris Jones might be the most elite target. You mentioned Kirk Cousins. He's going to get a bag from somebody. He'll probably go back to Minnesota if I had to guess. But besides those two, it's not like there's like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this guy's hitting the free agency market. Mike Evans has been locked up. T. Higgins has been franchise tags. We're not really going to see any of those kind of headline-making signings. However, there are still a number of players out there who will be available, who will be attainable for the contract the Patriots want to give them. And we mentioned there's just so many holes. If you had your kind of, you were the GM and you could pick solely on just your own feeling of, I like this guy, he's a good fit, we can get him for cheap or cheapish. Who you looking to get? Who you looking to bring in?
I'm going to name a few players, and you're gonna sense a theme. Jacoby Brissett. Mm-hmm. That's one. Another one will be Donovan Peoples-Jones. Another one will be Austin Hooper. And what is the common thread across all of them?
Well, they like to, they're football players. That's one.
Yep.
They're all Cleveland Browns or from the Cleveland Browns system.
Yep. That is exactly what I think that we'll see a lot of, especially on offense, is we're going to see an influx of players that know the Alex Van Pelt system, that have done pretty well in it. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he got traded to the Lions for a small 6th-round pick in 2025. Didn't really do that much. But 2022 led them had a career high 839 receiving yards and had 3 scores. Like, he can play if you're in the right opportunity. He's 6'2", 212, could be that bigger presence that like they kind of wish Devontae Parker was. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw instead of the Patriots paying for those top tier players in free agency, like this is going to be the modified homegrown talent is going to be bringing in the players that Alex Van Pelt knows have been able to succeed in his system. And that's what I firmly expect to happen on offense.
All right. So you don't think you take Hooper over, say, a Dalton Schultz, who will become available?
Yeah, because I think Schultz is going back to the Texans maybe or something like that. But I mean, when you look at like what is the cost effectiveness of it, like as you said, Hunter Henry is probably the best tight end in free agency, which is not a great thing to say. And so then you look at who are some of the other options. It's not going to be Gesicki or Jonnu Smith. And those are some of the other top players out there. And so maybe they'll bring in a Will Dissly who was let go by the Seahawks. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Hooper. He's also, 29 years old. He has shown in the past that he can be a good receiver. He knows the system. He's someone that I know the Patriots were like interested in the past. So I think that there will be a prioritization of players this year that are familiar with the system that also won't break the bank to help make the transition for all of the other players on the roster as easy as possible.
We're staying on the offense for a second, Rich Hill. I think tight end is one of the more intriguing options because, again, there literally isn't one on the roster right now. So we're going to have to do something. I can't imagine they address them entirely in the draft. Excuse me. So there's going to be a tight end or 2 signed. I think Pharaoh Brown is one, but he's not like a receiving tight end. He's not kind of like a top guy. Something to watch for. You mentioned that you're willing to let your guy Kendrick Bourne walk if necessary, which basically leaves Demario Douglas as the only real receiving option. So let's talk some free agency wide receivers. Are there any receivers out there that are intriguing to you? Maybe a Gabe Davis you mentioned coming off the Bills. Odell Beckham is available. He'll be 31. I don't know if you want to touch him. And Tyler Boyd from the Bengals could be a good option, possibly. Michael Pittman from the Colts. Any receiver think would fit the Patriots system?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of players that I would have liked. The T. Higgins, Evans, and Pittman trio are the 3 best. They're all going back to their original teams. Would have loved to have them on the outside. You look at the next tier, like, I don't want to give Calvin Ridley a lot of money. I don't think he's shown enough consistency over his career to warrant it. And then your next tier, you got your speedsters and Marquise Brown and Gabe Davis. Could be interesting. Both have been wildly inconsistent as well. The player that I would be curious about if they have any interest is Darnell Mooney, who had a pretty good start to his career with the Chicago Bears, would provide the Patriots some speed on the outside that I think that they need, especially when you think of like from a roster perspective. Pop Douglas is on the inside. That's your slot receiver right there. What the Patriots need is someone that they can count on the outside in both a speedster way, but also as well as like someone who could be just like reliably forcing the defense not to sit all in the middle of the field. And so like, who can do that? Not sure. There's not a lot of really good options out there beyond the players that we mentioned. And a lot of the really good other players kind of sit in the middle of the field. Players that I do like, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, those are players that sit in the middle of the field. They're not really field stretchers. Michael Thomas has not done a lot since he's been dealing with so many injuries with the Saints. He's a slot receiver. Noah Brown, that is a player that, look at the Patriots beat. They've been teasing a lot. Wouldn't be surprised if they showed some interest in there. But I don't see there being a top flight wide receiver that can really change the roster that will be available in free agency. And so honestly, I wouldn't be a little bit more surprised if they turned their focus to, who might be available via trade. Similar to how, you look at how a lot of the other quarterbacks, young quarterbacks have benefit from, Dolphins acquiring Tyreek Hill, Josh Allen getting Stephon Diggs. They didn't work well, but, Justin Fields getting a player from, more from the Panthers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots did something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think receiver, I know people are always talking about Marvin Harrison at 3. He'll most likely be there. They go receiver, and if that would be a potential big move. The moving that room up. I love Samuel. I think he's a great fit for the Patriots. He's kind of like a gadget player. You can line up all over the place. He's really good at yards after the catch, which I think they're going to need in 2024. I can't imagine the Patriots being this chunk yard play offense in 2024, given the dearth of talent along those lines. I think Samuel could be a good day 2 free agent signing that could really, really fit in well with that system, provided they have somebody who can block and catch as a tight end. How about defensively, Rich? Defense is still the strength of this team. There's still pretty good talent on the front, getting Matthew Judon back. Secondary still pretty solid. Duggar will most likely be back. They've got Jelani Tavai in the middle as a linebacker. They're not completely lacking with talent on the defensive side of the ball, but where's the one area on the defense you see the Pats wanting to target in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think where they haven't felt great about is at that free safety spot. I mean, I think you look at all of the other positions, they're returning most of the starters. Like Bentley and Tavai are going to be in the middle. As you mentioned, Judon's going to return, but you have him, Keon White, and Dietrich Wise as the trio, and hopefully Jennings can come back as well. They intentionally let go of Lawrence Guy because they liked what they have with Godshaw and Barmore as the top 2 up front. We have that trio of Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, and then whether it's Marcus Jones or like Alex Austin or Miles Bryant, as we mentioned, as an option to return, like they're fine from their top players at the cornerback spot. But from a safety position, they have Jabril Peppers, who is the only real safety that they have under the roster, and he's a box player. They used him all over the place. Don't get me wrong, and like he did well. But I think what they would really love to have is a Devin McCourty type center field safety again, because I don't think that was maximizing Kyle Duggar's potential by having him play a little bit deeper than what he used to do when they had a Devin McCourty out there. And that's not to say that there are a lot of free agent safeties out there that could really be that type of a player for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at bringing in someone who has that center field ability that could provide that value on that back end. Again, not a lot of options out there. Maybe Eddie Jackson, formerly of the Bears, but like that is what I would be looking for if I were the Patriots.
Yeah, Eddie Jackson would be good. I like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the Lions. The Eagles missed him a lot. They might be going after him. I like Xavier McKinney. He had a lot of good snaps last year, and Cameron Curl, I think, are 3 good options for safety. But again, it's not this kind of like elite. Devin McCourty's not out there waiting for him, unfortunately. So they might have to kind of just adjust accordingly. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting time, man. I really don't know how to kind of gauge this. I'm going to be usually as a Patriots fan, the past couple of years, I don't really pay attention when it starts because I know every time my phone beeps, it's not the Patriots signing somebody, it's somebody else. And you get that weird sinking feeling. You're just like, well, the Bills just got a lot better. Oh, great. The Dolphins made a trade for Tyreek Hill. That's exciting. But this year, I think we're going to get some good fun notifications coming up on our phones here, Rich Hill. To that end, good, Rich phones. Close it out. 4th and goal. Absolute dream free agent signing for you. All your wishes come true with this guy, or B, dream kind of free agent / trade that gets made in the coming weeks that just makes you so happy. Do you have any scenarios like that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, one where I don't think that there's like a player that would be like, oh my gosh, they got him in free agency this year. Because as I said, like most of the players that were like those blue chip players have already been either re-signed by their team or they've been tagged. Unless you're looking at that defensive line position, like I would love DJ Reader with the Patriots, but I just don't think that the Patriots really have that need on the interior to spend that type of money. I think we'll get more money elsewhere. So like, I don't really think there's any players that'll really earn that. And then like, I don't think that they need to have an edge player unless they want to find like an heir apparent to Judon and bring in like Daniel Hunter from the Vikings or something like that. What I would really love to see the Patriots try and take a swing at is what I mentioned of like bringing in, whether it's a wide receiver or a tight end that is going to be a free agent in 2025, 2026, getting one of those blue chip players that like could help whatever young quarterback or whatever quarterback that they have really take the offense over the top. Because right now, as I said, there's not a lot of players that you can bring in free agency. They're going to have to acquire them in some way. I think that the Bucs are going to keep Chris Godwin, and we're looking at the wide receivers that are going to be free agents in 2025. Like, I don't think that they're going to go for like a Keenan Allen or Mike Williams kind of a thing. But, going on that original idea, Amari Cooper, He's going to be a free agent from the Browns. Got to have a $20 million price tag. Is he someone that they want to bring back or, bring over from his time with Alex Van Pelt? You look at some of the other options, Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. Hopkins is obviously going to be older, but he's going to be, available at that point in time. But then you look at some of the younger players. Like, I don't think that the Bengals are going to get rid of Jamar Chase. Dolphins, they want to keep Jaylen Waddle, and then the Eagles want to keep Devontae Smith. But can all three of them stay? Would one of them become available? You think of how much the Bengals, with T. Higgins, they can't keep both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase beyond next year. So is there going to be one of them that's going to become available for the Patriots? Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. Are they going to be able to keep both of them for the Dolphins? Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Smith. Can they keep them both? So is it going to be worth it for one of those teams to trade that player to the Patriots in exchange for, 2025 early pick kind of a thing? And then you have some of the other players, and I'm just going off right now with CeeDee Lamb.
I like it.
Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. Like, there's a lot of players out there that are really good that are going to be free agents in the next year. And so obviously, I don't think all of them will leave. Amon-Ra St. Brown, no way he gets out of Detroit. But that's all just to say there's a lot of wide receivers that will become free agents in the next year or two. And so it's very likely that at least one of them could become a potential trade target for the Patriots. And I would love to see New England, with all of their cap space, do what they should have been doing in the later years of Tom Brady when they didn't acquire, or I guess A.J. Brown wasn't during that time frame, but there was a lot of free agent players. DeAndre Hopkins was one of them, where they didn't think it was worth paying for those veteran wide receivers, instead tried to draft them and just failed at it. I would love for them to take one of those chances with whatever young quarterback they have right now.
I asked for a dream scenario, and dream scenarios I got. That is quite a lengthy list, Rich. The only thing I'm concerned with, I just don't know what kind of trade value and capital they have to get all these guys in. But I guess that's Gerard Mayo's problem, not mine. Rich, I live by a pretty simple philosophy. As I say, I set the bar very, very low in your life, and that way you're never disappointed if you don't really set it, because they're just you don't have any good dreams. You keep the bar set low. You never have to worry about getting disappointed. So my dream scenario is just this. Bring back Jacoby Brissett. I like him. I think he's a good bridge quarterback. You draft a quarterback at 3. You do a year of Jacoby. Let the rookie learn. I've still been a very big proponent. I think Mac Jones might unfortunately be yet another example of maybe it's beneficial to let a guy learn for a year before he gets thrust into a starting position. I think any quarterback who's thrown into the Patriots offense in 2024 as a rookie is completely screwed. You have to learn the system, learn the NFL, learn the new pace with a crappy offense. Bring in Jacoby, draft a quarterback, let him learn. Pats win 5-6 games. We can keep the momentum going for next time. That's all I want to see over the next week and a half. Just bring in Jacoby Brissett.
I love that. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things too, where I don't want them to trade Mac Jones. I want them to keep Mac Jones. I want them to have Jacoby Brissett, and I want them to get a quarterback, whether it's Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, whoever it's going to be. I want that to be the trio. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because Jacoby Brissett's going to be your floor. He's not going to be an above average quarterback. He is going to fluctuate between being the 15th and the 25th best starter in the NFL if you put him out there. And that's not great, but that's what you're going to get. And that's going to be okay, because if he plays at that level and he's your best option, you're going to get another top pick. And that's going to be okay.
Yep.
If Mac Jones outplays Jacoby Brissett, cool. Maybe that's him returning back to what that rookie year promise looked like. And maybe he can be an above average quarterback. Maybe that's worth looking at. Worst case scenario, if he does that, that increases his trade value. If the rookie is better, then you have your guy. Any rookie that comes out looking like a top 15 player, I'm going to be okay with. That's going to be outperforming any sort of expectation. And so that way you're kind of maximizing all 3 values. You're setting your floor with Jacoby. You know what you're going to get from him. He knows the offense with Alex Van Pelt. He knows New England. He knows Gerard Mayo. All of those things work together. I think it gives the Patriots the best chance also to get a chip, because Mac Jones has looked good at times, and it's also worth getting a young quarterback in the system and not just punting from one of their top positions. All of these are worth throwing as many darts at the board as you can. And I think keeping Mac Jones allows you to keep one dart that has had some shine fall off but is it really his fault over the past 2 years?
Do you think Mac Jones, and we're not really talking free agency anymore, Rich, but that's okay. It's extra point time, extra point, or go for two. What do you think Mac Jones's trade value is on the open market? If they do decide to trade him, they get like a 5th round pick. Think that's reasonable?
I don't know. Honestly, you look at some of the other quarterbacks that have been traded. Like what did Sam Darnold get traded for when he went? I believe it was to the Panthers when he went for the Jets. He's had multiple stops since then. So I'm blanking on who the first team was immediately after he was getting traded. But it was for a this year 6th round pick and then a future 2nd and then a future 4th. Right? Like he wasn't good. And so that's notable in my mind that like he wasn't good, and he was 3rd overall pick, thought he was some promise, but he already had 3 years under his belt. They knew what he was, and Mac Jones has shown more promise than Sam Darnold had done at any point in my mind. And so could he get a future 2nd round pick? I don't think he'd get like a 2nd round pick this year, but maybe like a 3rd round pick. I could see him getting a late day 2 pick and a day 3 pick kind of a thing. He's not going to get a 1st round pick. Obviously, I would be shocked if anyone gave him a 2nd round pick on it, but like there's enough proof that like he has shown an ability. I think everyone knows that the Patriots offense was hot garbage over the past 2 years, and it was not entirely his fault. And I think that, people could just sense that like, okay, maybe it's worth giving him one more chance in a completely different system.
That makes sense to me, Rich. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence whether I'd like to see Mac Jones back or not. Part of me, for his own sake, maybe feel like got to let him go. I don't know if he can come back from being benched, and maybe a fresh start's good for him. But what a great story it would be if Bill Belichick leaves, Gerard May as the coach, and all of a sudden Mac Jones just starts lighting it up again. And maybe they're in a situation where they have a good rookie and Mac Jones, and the trade value, like you said, goes up next year. Who the heck knows? But I mean, I know you're a big off-season guy. I was never a big off-season guy, but in 2024, I'm officially an off-season guy. So I'm on the bandwagon with you now. It should be a fun couple weeks coming up.
Yeah, totally. And like I know we were talking about dream scenarios. My last one, I hope that the Patriots keep all their homegrown talent. I want Duggar, I want Onwenu, I want Barmore. We haven't talked about him at all. That would be the best way for the Patriots to spend their money. It's say, these are the players that we know can succeed here. Let's keep them around. Let's not throw money at problems that won't solve anything. And I'm just very excited to see what the Patriots have in store for this offseason for us.
Indeed, man. It should be fun. So we'll be back next week once the actual free agents start coming in. Hopefully, when we come back to this podcast, it's not crickets and we're still waiting for them to do something. So ideally, we'll be back next week. If not next week, and we have to wait until like Saturday or Sunday to have our first signing, it would not be unfamiliar territory. Hopefully, it'll be a little more exciting than years past. I feel like we are our past, like Pat's Puppet podcast back in the day, would be like, well, it's free agency. Nothing to talk about yet. What are we waiting for?
It's like the first day of the draft, like the round 1 recap, when we're like, so the Patriots traded, so got nothing for you.
Podcast
have a good
over.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have a lot more to discuss next week. I'm very hopeful for it. They do have money and they need to spend it. So something will hopefully, a domino will have fallen by then. And until that time, Alec, you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See ya.
All right. Later, man.